I call the public work session of the Portsmouth City Council scheduled for tonight, this evening, Tuesday, April 10th, 2018, to order. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mrs. Lucasberg? Here. Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Simmons? Here. Mr. Smith is absent. Dr. Whitaker? Mayor Rowe?
Here. And ladies and gentlemen, just for your information, we'll have two closed meetings tonight. The first one will occur after item 1 on the active shooter. After that closed session, we'll come back into our open
presentation
meeting and proceed with the rest of the agenda. Dr. Pat.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. The first presentation this evening is entitled Active Shooter. An active shooter is an individual who is actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people. In most cases, active shooters use a firearm or firearms and display no pattern or method for selection of their victims. Sergeant Scott Blystone has been a police officer for over 17 years, with approximately 15 of those years having served in the Portsmouth Police Department. He served on the city's SWAT team for 12 years and 6 years as the supervisor of the SWAT team. He has been teaching active shooter training for almost 12 of those years. During his tenure with the police department, he has regularly taught the active shooter presentation to members of the department, spoken before all other major media outlets, and taught at the Faith Behind the Badge meetings. With the recent resurgence in active shooter, active threat in February, he conducted an active shooter public forum for the city of Portsmouth. Sergeant Blystone has taught at multiple public and private schools, and with Portsmouth Public Schools, he has conducted this session with school administrators. He is currently conducting training throughout the city's departments. Mayor, I ask, would you like for me to wait after this and read the other two? At this time, members of council, I will present Sergeant Blystone.
Just to start out, I realize this is a very formal meeting. Just for question purposes, it's usually easier to refer to me as Sergeant Scott. Sergeant Blystone, a lot of people tend to mix it up. So nice to meet everybody, and thank you all for allowing me to come up here and speak on behalf of the police department and the security measures that we're trying to take to improve our cities, not only our school districts, but everywhere else that is occurring. We talk about active shooter, and we're starting to change the terminology from active shooter to active threat. The reason being is they have recognized our tactics to defend schools and locations that are being attacked, and they're altering their tactics, just like occurs in a battlefield. It's gone from just people with guns shooting from the top of towers, as in the 1964 Texas Tower shooting, to people driving their vehicles in large crowds and getting out of their vehicles and stabbing and killing as many people as possible, which is a tactic that ISIS is trying to bring to the United States in their sleeper cells in the United States, to active bomb threats, which is what Columbine initially was supposed to be, and later was altered because the juveniles, Klebold and Harris, who were involved in Columbine, were not experts in bomb making, and they watched a lot of their videos, YouTube videos, to try and determine how to make bombs. It failed for them, so they went to their secondary measure, which was to shoot it out with a bunch of people. We in the Portsmouth Police Department have spent a lot of time researching what was going on, going to conferences and talking to the individuals who are involved, and formulating plans as to how best to serve our community and how to go forward with the protection of the citizens of the city of Portsmouth in the case of an active threat or an active shooter situation. Our number one responsibility in an active shooter is to preserve life, no matter what happens. Our responsibility as responding officers is to show up as fast as possible, prevent as many people as possible from getting killed. Our tactics are, as I described them, they may not seem that way, and I'll explain a little further down the line as to how we're going to address that. I'm going to go over overall tactics and how the police department responds, and some of the things that we do here in the city of Portsmouth that, because of your funding and grants to the police department, we've actually taken a step up above, and we've recognized some of the federal regulations and recognitions on how we respond to, again, try and save as many lives as possible, and our number one goal, which is to preserve the life of anybody who's involved. We use what's called immediate action or rapid deployment tactics. We've gone away from SWAT response for active shooter. SWAT response was a very standard response. It works in 99% of police situations where we'll respond, we'll set up a perimeter around a situation to make sure nobody gets into the scene. We'll call out negotiators, we'll try and find out some history of the people that are involved, and we'll let the negotiators discuss with the suspect inside, try and get them to step out, and 90-95% of the time there's a very peaceful resolution. We end up taking the individual into custody and taking them to jail. That does not work with an active shooter incident. In most active shooter incidents, for instance, the Parkland shooting down in Florida, that incident was over in 10 minutes. Law enforcement did not have a chance to discuss anything with any suspects that were involved, and quite frankly, most of the suspects that are involved in active shooter, active threat incidents end up killing themselves upon contact with law enforcement. They don't want to deal with authority. They want to kill as many people as possible, and they want either to get out of the scene or to end themselves before law enforcement can intervene. The goal is, as sad as it is to say, get as high a score, kill as many people as possible, because the higher the kill total, the more likely you're on media, the more likely it makes national media, the more likely it shocks the conscience of the public into either listening to their ideas or just making a name for themselves. A lot of these active threat situations, we don't even know why they do it anymore, other than what we're teaching to people is that these people are pure evil. There's no other way to describe somebody like Dylan Roof, who went and broke bread with several people in a church congregation for months down in South Carolina, shared his dreams, shared their dreams and nightmares with them, and then walked into the church and killed a bunch of people. There's no other explanation. In fact, the shooter from Las Vegas, we don't know why he did what he did. There's theories that go around that talk about how his father was bipolar schizophrenic and was on the FBI Most Wanted list, but that had nothing to do with him. He was actually a very successful businessman. But for some reason, he climbed up to the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and started firing on a concert. A bunch of people were trying to share the experience of good music. We can be vigilant, though. We can look out for things that are different. We had a scenario here in the city of Portsmouth where a student was kicked out of school for one reason or another, and that very same day he started showing photographs of himself holding two firearms, cross-armed, and saying he was ready to go to war. We can be vigilant in those type of responses. The Parkland shooter, he posted information on Facebook and Instagram. We as law enforcement, we as citizens of the United States can be vigilant looking out for those type of individuals. The shooter from YouTube, actually there were some issues with some of her videos because they were too violent. They were keeping her off of YouTube because of that, and they think that's part of the reason that she went into YouTube and started shooting. So again, those are the things that we as citizens need to keep our heads on a swivel for. Let your local law enforcement officer know so that we can go in and investigate those type of individuals. That's how we prevent it on our side. On top of that, we can prepare for the type of scenario. We, in the police department, have started pushing a thing that came out of the city of Houston. It's called Run, Hide, Fight. It's a theory of how you as citizens who are involved in an active shooter can react to it. Well, I like to add to that. I say prepare first, then run, hide, fight. In preparation, we've gone to the schools and we've talked to them about having their teachers place their desks in front of doors or near doors, so that if they're in an active shooter and they have to lock themselves inside of a office or inside of their classroom, they can shove that desk in front of the door and barricade it and prevent the active shooter from coming in. Remember what I said in the beginning of the presentation. These shootings are over in 10 minutes. Here in the city of Portsmouth, we've actually had a lot of experience with it. We dealt with Wilson High School, in which our response was under 3 minutes. We dealt with the Naval Hospital, which wasn't an actual active shooter. It was somebody who had stabbed another individual, but the Naval Hospital listed it when they called us as an active shooter. Within 30 minutes, we had some 300 law enforcement professionals on the campus of the Naval Hospital. We're going to get to you. So you need to find a small amount of time or create defenses that give you a small amount of time for us to respond. If you can survive that 5 minutes, we're going to have a heck of a lot of law enforcement officers coming to you. And we're going to do what we can to make sure you survive. We're going to preserve your life, which is our #1 goal. Our responsibility is to stop the aggressive, deadly behavior. And it's a sensitive word. That may mean killing the suspect. That may mean the suspect killing themselves. That may mean us barricading or causing the suspect to barricade themselves in an area where they can't get to any more victims. Whatever we have to do to prevent the suspect from getting to any more victims, that's what we've got to do. When we come into a school, and this is pretty much a nationwide belief, this is what happened at Sandy Hook, officers will bypass the injured and go past those who are screaming for help to go directly to the threat. The reason we do this is every couple of seconds that we stop to help out somebody who's already injured, there's a possibility that that shooter could go and injure several more people. So we have to bypass the injured initially. We're going to get to you, and I promise we're going to get to you. We're going to get to the threat, and we're going to do what we have to do to end the active threat. Then we've adopted something really wonderful here in the city of Portsmouth. In 2013, there was a council of emergency medical physicians and the FBI came together and they said, how do we better respond to active shooters? We need to make sure that the first responding individuals in an active shooter provide as much medical care as they can before the fire department or anybody else can get in there. Because the fire department is not armed, they're not trained on how to deal with active shooter, and even if you were to select certain fire officials and arm them, it would take time for them to gather and respond. And again, we're talking 10 minutes. We don't have time. So through the funding, your funding, and the training of the Portsmouth Police Department, we gave every police officer in the city of Portsmouth a tourniquet. We also staged several tourniquets throughout the police department in certain locations so that if an active shooter does happen, those tourniquets, along with the training that we've given to those officers, we call it self-aid buddy aid. Anybody who was in the military would know it as TCCC, Tactical Combat Medicine. We've trained our officers on how to do that so that when they respond to an active shooter, the first couple of officers who are going in, they're going in to eliminate the threat. As more officers start to pour in, we get those officers together and they go in as a rescue team and they'll pull out as many injured as possible. We'll carry them to what we're calling a hot zone, or a warm zone, I'm sorry. Those are areas that we can protect and defend, where we can stage our injured and make sure that the fire department can get in and get them out to the area's hospitals. Treat as fast as possible. We want everybody in that incident to the hospital within 30 minutes if we can do it. That gives the hospitals plenty of time to work on people. The self-aid buddy aid is really important. Not only has it already saved one officer on the street and reduced the amount of injury on another sheriff's deputy on the street, but it's based out of combat medicine, that where we learn lessons from soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan on how to better treat people who are bleeding out. Because truth be told, you can bleed out in approximately 60 seconds, where it can take 3 to 4 minutes to die from asphyxiation. So it's much more important to learn how to heal yourself from bleeding. That's why first aid doesn't necessarily work in a combat situation. Again, we may bypass the injured, at least initially. We'll get to them as fast as we can, but we've got to stop that threat. We've got to stop the killing. We'll form up our teams, we'll send them in, we'll rescue as many people as possible, we'll get them to the hot zone or the warm zone where the fire department can come in, and they have a wonderful triage plan where they'll assign people injuries based off of, color codes based off of people's injuries, so that they can get them to area hospitals as fast as possible. Now, they're not going straight to Maryview or Norfolk Centera. They're going to funnel them to as many hospitals in the area as possible so they don't overwhelm one particular hospital. When it comes to run, hide, fight, which is what we're teaching to civilians, what we're teaching to the schools, what we're trying to push out there to everybody who will listen. Prepare first. Go to your office. See where your desk is. What kind of locks do you have on your door? What kind of weapons can you make if you need to? Your first idea is to run. Get out. Get away from the situation as fast as possible. Take as many people as you can without somebody necessarily slowing you down. If you can't run, hide. Find a good location, someplace with big heavy doors like you have here, someplace that you can lock, barricade, prevent people from getting into the facility. And if you must, if you absolutely must, then you fight. You fight like your life depends on it, because it does. You fight like you need to see your family tomorrow. And one thing that I particularly tell teachers, because teachers are wonderful people. They're there to educate and advance our society and advance our children. They don't think very much about having to fight for their lives. One of the things I tell them is, you come to work every day. You get up, you shower, you get dressed, you come to work to try and improve the city of Portsmouth. You try to improve the lives of the citizens that are around you. You do everything that you can to make it a better place. There's a nobility in that. The people who come to do this are coming to kill you and kill other people. They are the exact opposite of what you're trying to do. They are evil. So if you fight without limitation. You fight without hesitation. You do what you can. You pick up everything that you can. If you've got pens, you've got chairs, you've got fire extinguishers, you've got clocks, anything you can pick up and throw at them, you do it, because your life now depends on it. Before we go to any questions, I'd like to show you this video. If we could. This comes out of the city of Houston, and this is what we base some of our philosophy on. There are many organizations that have adopted this philosophy. A lot of federal organizations like Alert, they've adopted the same thing. They may rename it, but it's the same basic ideals.
They've run this several times.
It's embedded.
Just a second, please.
It's okay, he'll get it.
Are there any questions while we're waiting on them?
Questions? We're the first responders for the military installations.
That's correct, sir. Because of posse comitatus, and because they don't have their own typically large embedded military security, the Coast Guard base, in particular in Churchland, has a very limited security section. They rely on their local first responders to recall. I haven't been on the SWAT team since October, was my retirement from the team. But as a member of the team, we were consistently doing drills with Norfolk Naval Shipyard, Norfolk Naval Hospital, and the Coast Guard base.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. slice and give him a bag. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Questions?
I have one.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
mentioned there were some medications that they were using when they're I don't know, with the tourniquets. Some of the officers who have the medications that they come in with.
We stay away from narcotics
Okay.
themselves. We have, on top of the tourniquets, we have special tourniquets for children. We teach not only how to apply combat medicine, but when to apply it. Obviously, you don't want to do it while you're under fire. And we call it self-aid buddy aid because if you are injured, you are expected to provide first medical care for yourself if possible. We may not be able to get to you immediately to provide that. Our SWAT team has a expanded medical program with chest seals and things like that. It's all approved by our SWAT medics. Doc Lang, who is the doctor who's associated with our SWAT medics, is also the assistant MD for the fire department. He has really stepped up and assisted in improving our program and just trying to educate officers as much as possible without going into treatments that would be difficult for officers who don't practice these on a regular basis to conduct. So there's been a lot of thought into what we can do, what we can teach our officers, and simple things. For instance, tourniquet application, it's very simple and very quick and easily taught. We've actually recommended it to the schools to teach their teachers. As we know, there's a national argument for and against arming teachers. I personally am against it because of the expense that it would cost. If I'm going to arm a teacher, I want them as trained as our law enforcement officers to carry a firearm. However, we can teach them emergency medicine and get them to a point where if they are barricaded and they have injured students, they can provide this simple emergency medical care to extend their lives to the point where we get them out to a warm zone and get them out to our medics.
Other questions? Okay, we have a need to go into closed session, and I need a member of council to read paragraph C.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A19 for the purpose of discussing plans related to the safety of persons using government buildings or structures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Smith is absent. Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Rowe?
Yes, we're in closed session. Dr. Patton?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Rowe?
Yes. Yes.
Before we leave that subject, is it worth us to look into not allowing guns in City Hall?
I think there's a state code prohibition on that, if I recall. And will you research that?
I will.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's come up
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, we have, the state can do it, but we can't do it.
Yeah.
So the courthouse is state controlled.
Yes, and it's just like in Richmond, like when they have, legislation meeting in Richmond, they can control weapons in and out of state buildings, but the city, we don't have the same authority granted to the state, so unfortunately we can't do it. It'd be great if we could, but I don't think we can.
Yeah. If you would verify that.
I will.
Okay. Dr. Pat?
Yes, you want to tell the other people so they can?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the 10?
Gotta get out of Kate back in.
We'll take a 1 minute to allow people to get back in.
Had to be too quiet.
Mr. Gooden, you can go up because I'm going to read and get ready to start.
All right, we're back in open session. Dr. Pat?
Yes. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, the second presentation this evening, Ms. Elizabeth Gooden, Director of Human Resource Management, will present an overview of the city's fellowship and internship program. Tonight's presentation also includes information on the selection process for the fellowship and internship program for the city departments and offices. The third presentation is a report back to City Council on the city's snow removal plan and the impact of clearing all city streets during a snow event. Mr. Youssef Kalir will be the presenter. Mrs. Gooden.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Tonight I'm going to give an overview of the city's fellowship and internship program. The goal of our program, our fellowship and internship program, is basically really to introduce people to our younger people, not even younger, just actually people out there, be it high school students, be it anyone who's an undergraduate or someone who's actually pursuing a graduate degree, or someone who's looking at skilled trades as a profession. Our goal is basically to let our students know that in public sector, there's more to do here besides maybe being a police officer or a firefighter. That's what most people think. When you think of public sector employment, that's what they think of. And we want to let them know we have all different types of careers here. You can be an attorney, you can be an engineer, you can be a risk manager, just a whole abundance. And as I shared previously, in our Hampton Roads area, we have a very high percentage of millennials, and we need to do a lot to actually attract them. The goal of our fellowship internship program is, as they go through it, we're looking to evaluate potential talent. We also use our internship and fellowship program as a recruitment tool to actually look and assess. One of the things you can actually do when you actually have an intern or a fellow, you get an opportunity to educate, share knowledge about government. We also get some benefits from it too. Many of our fellows and interns actually work on projects. I can tell you of the success of our program. We're in our second year. One of my I'd say one of my best performers who actually works in my department started off as a graduate intern. When she started with us, we were beginning working with Mr. Daniel Jones. We were beginning our ERP, our Enterprise Resource Program, and she actually started working with us on that system. And to this day, she probably has more knowledge than anyone in our department. Another benefit of our fellowship and internship program, it also enhances our local workforce. It gives individuals opportunity, as I said previously, for career discovery, and it also supports our institutions. As you know, we have TCC right here. We've actually reached out to them to actually get some of those students to actually come in and actually work, to use some of that knowledge that they actually learn in the classroom and to apply it in a real life situation. When we're working with our interns, we actually talk to them about our career development opportunities. We take them through this whole cycle here of exploring their options. We're also helping to develop their skills. Lots of times, believe it or not, you'll have interns, and some of them have actually never worked outside of maybe working at a Busch Gardens or maybe working at a Mickey D's. We give them an opportunity to see really what goes on in the work life cycle. We also give them opportunity to market themselves, to perform duties, and also kind of do a self-assessment. The one thing we introduced for our second year, we introduced a professional development stage. So as we get our interns into our program, we're actually going to have them go through some various types of trainings to actually help enhance their skills. We're going to do some interviewing basics. We're also going to do the program that I talked about a little bit last night about emotional intelligence that speaks about self-awareness and understanding how people perceive you. We're doing all of this because it's also going to enhance our workforce development initiatives. The more residents, the more people that we have out there who understand understand basic, I'd say, work skills, basic behaviors, they're able to be gainfully employed. There we go. This is our current recruitment process for our interns. We start off first by getting information from our departments and city offices, finding out who wants to actually have an intern or a fellow. We actually post our internship opportunities on our career portal. They actually apply for the positions. Human resources staff, we actually screen them. We're making sure that if you're a high school student, that you are a high school student. If you're for an undergrad or for a graduate intern, we make sure and we verify that you're actually pursuing an actual degree, and that more importantly, that you're at least in good standing. We're looking for at least a 2.0. And for our skilled trades intern, we're just looking for some interest of somebody wanting to maybe be an equipment operator, some of those other things that we can grow them into. After that, we do our initial interviews with our HR staff. We talk to them about the program, really get information from them too to see what benefits they want, and then what we do is match up based upon what our department's needs are with the potential needs of our interns. One of the last things we do once we realize there's actually a match, now as it relates to a lot of our positions, some of our positions do require additional checks besides a basic reference check. For example, anyone who would work in behavioral health care services, they would be subject to a CPS check. They would be also subject to fingerprinting. Same thing if interns in the police department. So we do the same checks we actually do there. Just for some additional knowledge, the city of Portsmouth, along with a lot of our municipal cities in this area, we are ban-the-box employers, which means, with the exception of public safety, we don't ask anyone about if they have any type of criminal things of that nature until afterwards. That's one of the newest things. This has been going on, ban-the-box, probably at least 5, 6, maybe 7 years. So we actually do those checks. Some of the checks are really going to be based upon also the age of the person. You have to have the age of consent. If you can't consent, we actually have to go to their parents and get them to consent. Some jobs actually do require a urine drug screen, or if it requires a criminal background check, we would look for those things too in that regards. Thus far in our program, when we debuted our program, we had a total of probably about anywhere from 21 to 25 interns. We're in our second year, and we're just kind of ramping up our phase. So we're looking again to have some really good interns do a lot of good projects. We've had some good ones. I know Mr. James Wright in engineering, he had an intern who helped him on his stormwater project. And also, I'll share with this, even before we came up with one of our formal internship program, a lot of people don't realize this, but our former Deputy City Attorney, Sharon Cordell, she started off as an intern in the City Attorney's office. She actually started off working on FOIAs. So you can actually see some of the benefits you can get from interning with the City of Portsmouth. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
You use the term intern and fellow.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a difference?
Yes. When we talk about fellows, we're talking about high school students. So those would be somebody who's still in high school. Maybe they're going to come and work a little bit during the summer. Interns are going to be those ones who are actually affiliated with a graduate or undergraduate program. Some of the undergraduate and graduate programs also require them to actually have to perform, participate in an internship, and with that, we do provide information back. Sometimes what the interns will actually do, they'll have a little program form that you have to fill out and validate to provide back to the school, because they get credit for it.
When is the application process open? I know some college students that might be looking.
It's actually open now. Yes, it's actually open now on our career portal.
Okay.
Other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Kalir will come forward with the snow removal plan.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, good evening. This presentation on snow removal is a report back in response to Public Works developing a plan to remove snow from every street in the City of Portsmouth. Our city has a total of 882 lane miles of paved streets. Presently, the Public Works Department clears 371 lane miles as follows. 268 lane miles of primary roads, example, High Street, Airline Boulevard. Included with the primary roads are all fire stations and hospitals. We also clear all HRT snow routes to facilitate their services to our citizens. Oops, sorry. Here we go. "71 lane miles of secondary roads also are cleared. Example, Crystal Lakes Drive and Mount Vernon Avenue. 32 lane miles of third priority roads. Example, Clifford Street and Darren Drive. In addition, we clear city-owned parking areas and school ramps. Presently, the city has the following snow equipments: 12 trucks with plows and spreaders, 2 loaders, and a salt storage building. During storms, the Public Works team is divided into 2 12-hour shifts. Snow removal for a typical event takes 24 to 48 hours after the storm. In some cases, below freezing temperatures or follow-up storms can extend recovery beyond 48 hours post-storm. Snow removal involves public works and contractors provided by the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and VDOT. VDEM and VDOT serve as lead agencies during periods of inclement weather. The City of Portsmouth and all Hampton Roads cities use contractors approved by state agencies to comply with procurement and risk management. The Virginia Department of Emergency Management can assign either VDOT personnel or contractors to assist the cities in snow removal. Contracting snow removal for all neighborhood streets, excluding private roads, adds 511 lane miles to the 371 lane miles we already maintain, totaling 882 lane miles. The following are policy and operational factors when plowing city streets. Complexity of snow removal operations, dimensions of streets, length and width, neighborhood parking policy requirements, equipment requirements for the contractors, mechanical support for the contractors to include the use of our facilities, multiple contractors for larger storms, city support to include fuel, salt, and sand, contract management, liability for damage to city infrastructure, facilities, roads, and personal property, environmental concerns such as sand, sediments in our storm water system. Risk management factors. Clearing all city streets would have an impact on the following: an increase to the city/contractor general liability insurance coverage to $2 million per occurrence and $4 million aggregate due to additional risk exposures. Snow removal on narrow residential streets is a skilled trade and will increase the potential for property damage. It would also increase the chances of vehicle and pedestrian accidents. Additional salt and sand on residential streets will increase the rate of infrastructure deterioration, leading to an increase in street maintenance costs. The expansion of The expansion to 882 lane miles has significant financial impact. This impact is as follows. 30 plow trucks at $250 per truck per hour equals $7,500. 5 supervisors at $250 per supervisor per hour equals to $1,250. 5 mechanics at $250 per mechanic per hour equals $1,250. Total contractor cost per hour equals to $10,000. Salt and sand estimate is $75,000 per event, $75,000. Fuel estimate is $5,000 per day. The estimated annual impact for snow removal is $1.5 million to $3.75 million, depending on the severity and number of storms per year. Additional capital investment required for an additional salt dome and front-end loader is $650,000.
Questions?
Yes. I guess when the governor does a state of emergency and some of those trucks or equipment or whatever they use to help alleviate, the snow or inclement weather, whatever it is, how does those factors play into these high costs?
When the emergencies are declared, then we go through VDEM, the Virginia Department of Environmental Management, and they would help us out with providing either state employees from VDOT or contractors to come down and help us out, but they still would bill us, whether it's from VDOT or a contractor.
So state of emergency doesn't mean free.
No.
No, they don't.
I think in our initial discussion, at least from my standpoint, it wasn't each individual street within a community. It was like the secondary roads, not the major arterial roads that we do. Is when you get to that second level. A good example, probably hedgerow. Hedgerow is not treated until real late in the process, yet that's an outlet to Merrifields and Southampton, a lot of other communities. And every community's got those roads that are the main roads that run through their particular community, that once you reach that, you're in good shape. I think all of us realize there's an impossibility to do each individual street within a community. That's where I was coming from.
Okay. What we do is we clear, as I discussed a little earlier, we clear all the primary roads, fire stations, hospitals, and all of that. Sure. And then we have the list, which is online also, of secondary roads. We move to that, and then the third priority. And we keep going, and then we end up with the ramps at the schools, and then at the very end, we go to the parking lots in the schools. And everything is listed. I'm trying to find if I have it. I have the secondary roads and priorities, and I'll be happy to provide you with that list.
So Hedge Road would probably be on a secondary road.
It is on the secondary
list.
Okay.
Well, I think the bottom line was this was pretty unusual amount of snowfall for this area.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I don't own a snow blower, but I would like to have my hands on one. But I'm not going to go out and buy one for something that might not happen again,
Yeah, our average in the area is 4 inches per year, but you have some years where it's going to be like this year, a little crazy.
Sure.
The issue when it was raised was because of the unusual impact of this past snow, having schools shut down for, I believe, a week.
It was 5 days.
So this wasn't intended to address every snowstorm. But I do think that the citizens were greatly inconvenienced, and it created some economic issues for some people as well who couldn't get to work, and possible emergency situations. I just can't believe that we can't come up with a better solution than what we have. When I see reports like this, it tends to show what we can't do. I thought we were trying to achieve something to help so that when these situations come up, we would at least have a better plan in place than what we have now. Those costs that are up there, I don't see how you can come up with a cost and it has not even been put out for any possible bids yet. So how could those be the figures if it has not been bidded on? And as far as going through the state, I don't know, is that required that you have to go through the state? And as far as the risk, the supplies, are those things that the city would have to supply, or would those contractors in their proposals have to bring some of those items to the table in their proposals? So I thought it was trying to come up with something better, not to try to show how we can't do it, because we can always show how we can. I was trying to see how we can, because there was a great outcry from the city.
Okay, I could.
Dr. Payne.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, the report that we are bringing back at the request, agreed Council to bring it back, is not a report that has been presented to say what the city cannot do. The report is showing exactly at this time what the city does during snow events. The information regarding expanding it to every street, which we went back and listened to, try to get exactly what is discussed or said in a meeting, is the reason that we included the 877 lane miles, which would encompass all the city. As indicated with this year's storms and last year's storm, the storm this year wasn't predicted in the onset to be as bad as it was. So when we are working with VDOT and with the agencies of what the amount of snow that is inspected in your area, that's when the determination is made of how many trucks comes to this city, how many trucks go to another city, or where they go around the state. We're a part of that state contract. So every snowstorm, we are not out contracting to try to get the contractors, which are already a part of a state system, approved, have the kinds of insurance which are required as the risk management, providing this information of the high risk if we were not with persons who are already approved and sanctioned by the state to do the work across the cities. With that said, and we listen and work with Captain Arnold, who pretty much guides us in regard to how much snow it's expecting. He's the one on the phones that's negotiating, working with Mr. Clear to determine exactly what is in place for a snow event. I can say that they have missed it sometimes, like they missed it on that last 5-day out of school. That was a missed accumulation of snow. And as we all come back together after every storm and have a review and a discussion of what happened, what we could have done better, Captain Arnold lets us know that, we weren't expecting that much snow. That which we planned for, if it had come, we had the trucks that were necessary for it. But it comes with us hearing from those who are assessing what the conditions will be in our cities across the region and preparing from there. And yes, that was missed in that storm. We could have had 20 more trucks, and could have if that we knew that was going to be the case. So we missed it, and yes, schools were out all over the region, but those contractors that were availed were the ones that we brought in based on what we are told what the conditions are going to be, and we don't assess that. We listen to those who are the experts in. And so what we will do better on our part, as I said to Captain Arnold and the team, is sometimes we miss it and most of the times they don't. But on that one we did.
Well,
so
I thought that was the purpose of planning.
We are planning,
no,
but
I'm saying as far as you have contingency plans in place, and that's all we were raising here as far as what's the contingency plan.
Okay.
But it doesn't seem like there is one.
Well, we do have a plan.
No, I mean, as far as if a situation like this occurs again, and you're just using, I guess, what the state plan calls for in those contractors. My question... We
could have gotten more. Had the storm going, if we knew it was going to be 13 inches or whatever, our accumulation that was predicted by those who are the meteorologists and working with those who say how much gave us an expectation. So if we know it's going to be I'm thinking of 2016 when we had in, how many trucks? 20, we had 20? We had an additional 20 trucks. We had 20 trucks in that snow in 2018, which got it cleaned up quickly. This snow was supposed to be 5-6 inches. We had 12 trucks, and that's what we were.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying the only contractors that we can use are contractors through VDOT.
That is that's it. We do not contract with.
That's by state law that we can only.
No, I didn't say by state law.
Well, that's my question. Then why aren't we?
Because of the risk factors that, for example, I may have a truck and a whatever on the front. I may go out to do parking lots, but I am not equipped to have the insurances and what are necessary to clean city streets and be in a contractual situation with the city. There are certain insurances that these people who are clearing streets have that I, with my one truck, don't have, so I definitely would not contract because of the liability as risk management calls to our attention.
But what about those that do? That's all I'm saying, and I don't want to keep belaboring it. I just don't think you've put the time to it to look at the contingencies. That's what I'm saying, the risk issue, that would just be a matter of who you're meeting with and planning, but to just dismiss it, I think that's a wrong approach.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Clear.
All right. Any further? Thank you very much. Dr. Pat, your report?
Yes, Mayor, we have 8 city manager reports that are coming before you for consideration tonight. The first is the Continuum of Care Competition Homeless Assistant Award, which has been awarded through Behavioral Health Care for $527,449. And this money comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it will be appropriated through the FY 2018 Grants for Fund for the use of the Department of Behavioral Health Care Services to provide supportive services to chronically homeless Portsmouth residents. The Shelter Plus Care program has provided an opportunity for affordable, permanent, and safe supported housing choices for over 146 homeless citizens since 1994. There are currently 38 single adults and 9 families with 29 member adults and children in the Shelter Plus Care program. The Shelter Plus Care and supportive housing programs provide housing, case management, supportive groups, and financial management while encouraging stability, employment, and independence of the individuals that are in this program. And it also includes families that are living with HIV and AIDS and other mental health issues. The second item that will come before you is the 2018 Technology Fund Trust. An adoption of this ordinance will be accepting an allocation of $37,405 from the Virginia Technology Trust Fund and appropriating said amount in the FY 2018 Grants Fund to be used by the Portsmouth Circuit Court Clerk's Office to fund technology maintenance and improvements. Adoption of an ordinance, and this is the third, for the Virginia Litter Prevention and Recycling Program grant. That's amount of $15,849, and it comes from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, and that fund will go into our grants fund to be used by stormwater and waste management divisions for education and public outreach. The fourth is the transfer of CIP funds for the West Haven Elementary roof replacement. Adoption of an ordinance to amend the FY 2018 Capital Improvement Fund budget by authorizing the transfer of $150,000 from the Brighton Elementary School roof replacement project to the West Haven Elementary School roof replacement project. And the original submission of the work for the roof was based on one scope of work. And when the design started, it was determined that the scope that was needed to be changed, thereby reducing the amount of money that was necessary for the Brighton Elementary School. So that is why that money is available and transferable over. The next is an adoption of an ordinance with the 2018 personal property tax relief. The adoption of this ordinance is establishing a personal property tax relief percentage of 53% for calendar year 2018 personal property tax bills. In accordance with the Virginia Personal Property Tax Relief Act, the city is required to annually establish the personal property tax relief percentage to be applied to qualified vehicles. With the assistance of the city treasurer and the Commission of the Revenue, a personal property tax relief percentage of 53% has been calculated as sufficient to exhaust the state funds expected to be allocated to the city of Portsmouth for calendar year 2018. The next is an amendment to Chapter 30 of the City Code to authorize the Retirement Board to serve as the OPEB trustee. Adoption of an ordinance to amend Chapter 30 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia, 2006 by establishing a new Article 5 titled Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust. And at the March 12, 2018 work session, City Council directed staff to take the necessary measures for the city to join the VML VACO Pool OPEB Trust Fund. A resolution will be presented at tonight's council meeting for consideration to authorize the city to join the Pool Trust Fund. And the resolution also appoints the Board of Trustees of the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System, the Retirement Board, as the trustees of the city's interest in the investment with the fund. The next is adoption of a resolution to adopt a trust for other post-employment benefits. And over the past several years, the Government Accounting Standards Board has established new standards to govern accounting for non-pension other post-employment benefits, OPEB, provided by governments to their former employees. As a result, many governmental entities have established interest-earning trust funds to set aside funding for future OPEB liabilities. The last for this evening is a donation from Town Bank. It's an adoption of a motion to accept the donation by Town Bank of a replica of Town Bank building at Safety Town, located at 4404 Deep Creek Boulevard. That concludes those items for.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
We do have 3 public hearings, one on the budget and 2 planning items. The first planning item, there is a request to withdraw the item from the agenda, so we'll entertain a motion to grant that request. All right, Dr. Paxton.
Is that you're talking about the church one?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I did have a question on that one before we withdraw. Is this the same property where it came before us before about a Dollar General and the community came in large numbers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. According to Mr. Baldwin, it is the same project.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Pat?
Yes, Mayor, the city clerk, this is a report back last night regarding the general fund revenue budget and the fund balance. So the city clerk is passing this out, and I'll just ask you to just go up there and talk through that for me.
How much time do we need for a closed session? We got 2 items.
20,
minutes,
30.
okay. Well,
You need 30? 20. Okay, this will be quick.
Sure. I believe last night the request was for us to do the calculation of the 15% of your fund balance policy. That amount would be $36,258,920. When we project out for June 30th of 2019, the fund balance, the estimate would be $51,590,331, or 21.3%. A healthy fund balance is necessary to support both the city's pooled cash flow needs as well as the ability to respond to emergencies which occur during any budget year. The city's pooled cash position must support monthly expenses, even though most of your revenue is received on a semi-annually, quarterly, or in arrears reimbursement basis from the state. Additionally, the following table that you have there demonstrates the fixed payment expenses for your debt payments that's supported by the pooled cash of the city. What you can see there is even though the position at June 30th is predicted to be $51.5 million, in July we have $17.8 million that goes out in debt payments. So immediately it falls down by almost $20 million. And that's what we mean when we talk about the cash flow needs of having a strong fund balance. So I also mentioned last night that the city's credit rating is largely dependent on the sustainment of a healthy fund balance given the amount of debt obligations that you have as a city. So should you experience a revenue decline or maybe a budget where all of the revenues that you expected don't come through, all of your fixed expenses still continue, specifically your debt service payments. And so those would be supported by that strong fund balance. Again, I mentioned also the city manager has requested our financial advisors to take a look at our financial policies and make any recommendations that bring us back in line with some of the more modern credit rating agency expectations. And so that presentation, I believe, is scheduled for your 23rd of April meeting. Yes, sir.
So in July, that 17.8 million expense that's going to come out.
Yes.
What will that fund balance percentage be based on? Which budget balance? Because you have here the 241 million.
Sure.
So what will that 15% be based on in July?
So your governor, when you do your predictor, you're doing it as of the June 30th prediction of that fiscal year. So the prediction of what your fund balance would be based for 18-19 would be based upon your June 30th, 2019.
So that's you're using the
$241 million of the revenues, yes. So we take a 15% of that,
right,
and that tells you your minimum amount that you need to have as of that date.
Right. So it's not going to be this whole 17.8 that's going to come out in July, because that would put it below the 15% threshold.
Well, so your fund balance percentage is as of June 30th. So it doesn't mean that every day of the year you must have 15% sitting there, because you don't. There are times where it falls below. There are times where it rises above. So I would expect, and I've not looked at a cash flow, but when you have your real estate tax payments coming in of millions and millions of dollars, that's going to take you well above. But it's in the aggregate as you look at it in the fiscal year. We try to judge it based on June 30th as a predictor. So
that 15% has to be actualized when?
As of June 30th. So when we look at June 30th, we want to have at least 15%. And what I want you to know is
right,
that's really pretty low when you look at the amount of debt service payments that you have.
So throughout the years, that fluctuates. It doesn't matter as long as when we get to June 30th, we're at 15%.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Yes, sir.
Good. All right. Dr. Pat, no more?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that completes my.
Let's go quickly through our liaison reports. Bill, do you have one?
Yes, I was at the PPIC meeting. The Timmons Group presented a real good presentation. I think it was titled, Is Your City's Sites and Is Our Community Ready for Prospects that we're going after? presentation was excellent. In fact, I would like to suggest that maybe our Economic Development Director present it to our council. It was that good, and I think contained that much insight on what people are really looking for. Obviously, time is of the essence when companies are looking to make a decision, and I think the presentation pointed out that 60% are looking for existing buildings, not necessarily new build-outs. But I would highly recommend that presentation.
Can we do this on Monday? Can we squeeze it in between now and the time we adopt a budget?
What do you mean, our next Monday meeting?
No, not this coming Monday.
You said Monday.
Can we do it on a Monday?
Yes, I will follow up with Mr. Moore, but there was a
Is that
consultant
agreeable
there.
with everybody?
Sure.
There was a consultant that pretty much made the presentation.
That's what he's talking about.
Yes.
Oh, you're trying to see if we can get
the-
that consultant?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
with the Timmons group.
We'll follow up on that on tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what
It was excellent.
I thought you were saying he'd come and do it. Okay.
I just have a question in regards to, since that's going to be an EDA presentation that night. Is that what you're referring to?
PPIC, I think.
No.
PPIC,
Oh, okay, not
Yeah.
EDA.
not EDA.
There's no presentation.
Oh, yes, at the STOP meeting, board meeting, they have this new packet that they're doing for all of the cities, and they're going to create them for all of the cities that they belong into, would like to be more visible in, and they've started with Portsmouth. So they're going to get these to us for Portsmouth, showing some of the services that they can offer in Portsmouth. So this is the first one that they did for Portsmouth. So I was really proud to be on the board and have Portsmouth one come up first. With the Planning Commission, of course, we'll hear about the use permits, that one was denied and one is going forward with us today, but one that's of importance to us is the zoning ordinance that changes the minimum lot sizes in the subdivisions and the re-subdivisions. So that was an ordinance that passed for them. So we'll hear about them, the CA-1801. And of course, the last one, PRHA, they have done 2 bidding contracts, and they have gone with the low bid that they will have their meetings videotaped and recorded for placement on YouTube for citizens to be able to listen in on their meetings, and that should happen this month.
So they're not coming here to me?
They're not coming here to me.
What's the reason, video equipment, I take it they probably had to purchase video equipment.
Right.
And why do they want to duplicate that when all they have to do is meet in this facility?
Their question, their response to me was that the other PRHA boards and commissions do not meet in city buildings, and all of them have their own space, and they wanted to follow what other PRHA departments use. So they got 2 bids out. They went with the lowest bid. They had the equipment that was being installed last month. So I guess this month they will be live with, and they said it'll be on YouTube just like we post ours on YouTube for citizens to go in and view the meetings.
What was the expenditure?
They didn't give me that. I'm still asked to leave the meeting if it's not city business, if is there any legal or other information.
And
It's just ridiculous.
we need to address that. Maybe our attorney can. She's our representative at those meetings. She should be allowed to sit in on a closed session. I think previous liaisons have been accorded that.
He
She should.
I will follow up on that.
And while we on the subject of the Housing Authority, we were given a list of property sales a few weeks ago. One jumped out at me was a parcel of property on Maple Street that was assessed at $80,000 being sold for $500. I think this council and the citizens of the city need to know why property was discounted at such a rate. Hopefully there's something on the back end that we're not aware of, but on the surface it doesn't look good.
Check that out.
Yes, sir, we have that noted, and we will report back to you at our next meeting.
All right, thank you.
I don't have a liaison report. I have some budget questions, but in lieu of time, I'll ask them when we get out there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, reference to the Hampton Roads Regional Jail Authority. Our regular meeting was last February, but at that meeting, I've already given a report on that. We decided to have a special meeting on March the 21st that was held. Myself and Dr. Patton were both in attendance. The reason that that special meeting was called was to review, the 1-year mark of Ronaldo Myers, who was the superintendent. But as we were at that meeting, he had already submitted his resignation prior to that meeting. So during that meeting, we voted to accept that resignation. And in addition, we voted in Lieutenant Colonel Hackworth, that's currently employed by the Chesapeake Sheriff's Office as the interim superintendent for the regional jail. So then our discussion turned to, searching for a permanent replacement. And the topic came up discussing about, instead of using the company did in the past, possibly letting one of the localities involved take lead on the search. With a conversation with Dr. Patton, we offered up Portsmouth, Libby Gooden and her team to do it, which the board agreed. So they're going to take lead on searching for a permanent superintendent. And our next scheduled meeting is Wednesday of next week, and I'll have a report following that.
No report. Council already has the budget from the schools. I did have a follow-up question on Mr. Moody. I was asking about EDA and the properties. I thought you were alluding to the discussion we had with EDA about these properties that was suggested that instead of them just being held, that they be put up for auction. And I don't know if council, if that's going to be something that we are going to discuss.
Can we schedule that for?
We have from the EDA meeting, the team right now, and they have been working since the meeting. You remember there are 3 tiers. They're meeting to put all the properties that were presented to you in the proper tier. So we should be having that ready.
The recommendation, the suggestion is that we follow up on Bill's suggestion about holding an auction on this property. Let's put this on an agenda. Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, well, it was brought up by one of the EDA commissioners at the Saturday meeting that
whoever, yeah,
that they would follow through on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's schedule that. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we do need a closed session. And is there a motion?
A and B.
B.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A7 for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the city, specifically regarding Virginia International Gateway, Inc. versus City of Portsmouth, Virginia. Portsmouth Circuit Court case number CL16001427-00 and Virginia International Gateway, Inc. versus City of Portsmouth, Virginia. Portsmouth Circuit Court case number CL15002813-00 and pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2 through 3711A.6 for the purpose of discussing the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the city and the financial interests of the city, specifically regarding the Southeastern Public Service Authority.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Mayor Rowe?
Yes, we're in closed session.